Welcome to the inaugural BCA webinar. We're so glad you've joined. My name is Jason Mitchell, Senior Vice President at Brad C. Sloan Associates, and you are?
I'm Bryce Johnston, Director of Digital Strategy here at BCA.
Awesome. Tell us a little bit more about yourself.
About myself, I've been in digital fundraising for about 12 years now, and been with BCA really kind of overseeing, again, our digital program as well as optimization for almost a year now. So
That's great. Well, like Bryce, I've spent most of my adult life in and around nonprofits, so super happy to be a part of this webinar. BCA wants to help you make a difference in the world. Mm-hmm. We are a direct response agency. We also have a full team dedicated to capital campaigns and strategic counsel. So the webinar, this is our first, but we plan on having this monthly.
We do.
The goal is we're hoping it's really encouraging to you, and we want it to hopefully make a difference in your mission impact. So we have a bunch of these planned, ideas, people to show up and be a part of. But if you have ideas, we would welcome them because we probably haven't thought of everything. We want this to be collaborative. So we're super excited. One note before we get started is, as in terms of questions, if you have any, we are going to dedicate some time at the end for that. You can just put them in the chat to Q&A. There should be a person in there as Q&A. Direct your questions as that, and then we will address those later.
We'll answer them at the end, right?
Pretty nice little day for a webinar, right?
It's a great day for a webinar. We had Olive Garden brought in before this, so again, if I'm a little groggy, it's a handful of breadsticks that I was eating over there. I apologize. I apologize.
What are we talking about
today? I kept the
today?
shirt clean though, so that's a good thing.
I
was excited. No, today we're going to be talking about how to optimize your online donation page for success. So really looking at a couple of different areas. The main areas of focus are going to be what is donor friction and how to combat that, and then value proposition and the importance of value proposition specifically on your donation page.
I know you're going to go into more detail on this. Donor friction, value proposition, big words, but let's frame this a little bit. Everybody's been on a website where you were trying to buy some shoes or you're a really awesome shacket and you're trying to go through the checkout process, and it's cumbersome and time-consuming and frustrating. And you might even end up giving up, but you really want the shacket, so you'll go through the process, enter the credit card, and buy it. That's what we're talking about. Whether the donor on our websites are experiencing any kind of frustration as they encounter the donor process.
Exactly, right? It's just making it as seamless as possible to help increase that conversion rate. So
awesome.
Looking at a couple of different ways of doing that. So
let's get started.
We can kind of really jump in. Like I said, the first thing that we're going to be talking about is donor friction. What is donor friction, right? It's the psychological resistance that your visitors experience when trying to complete an action, right? So friction's a conversion killer. We're going to be looking at really three specific types of friction on that donation page. We have field number friction, confusion friction, and steps friction.
Awesome.
So we'll kind of go into what those are specifically. The first one that we have is field number friction. Field number friction, it's pretty self-explanatory, right? The more form fields that you present and actually have required or collecting, the greater chance that someone will actually abandon that donation process, right? So the more fields that we have, if we're asking for a phone number, if we're asking for spouse's name or work phone, things like that, those additional fields while they're completing that donation process is considered a field number friction.
Yep.
So we have a couple of examples, right? Here's an organization, actually a university. We took some screenshots from their website here, but we disclosed who they are. But
names changed to protect the innocent.
Of course.
At first glance, this is really visually nice, simple, seems pretty focused, right?
It's a fairly clean looking donation page from the main aspect, right? But when we actually dive into it, you have your donation amount here, but then you also have your designations. I'm gonna bust this pin out right here. So whenever we're going through it, we actually have this multiple or other designations. So we were curious, so we clicked on that because if it's there. Let's see what comes up. So whenever we click on the actual designations, it gave us 53 options for designations. And I believe you actually took this screenshot.
Right, and it may have been a glitch that those were all preset that way, but I will say that I scrolled through this. See, this is at the top. There are thousands of options on this website. So basically, we're asking them to make a decision. If someone's unfamiliar with what We just want them to make a donation, right?
If they're unfamiliar, if they are familiar,
Yeah.
if they know, hey, I want to give specifically to biology research.
Great, they can find it. It's
They
alphabetical.
have to go through. Well, if they want to give to zoology, then
Yes,
then
they're
they're
scrolling
scrolling
down.
for days.
Yes.
I mean,
Yes.
you have to go all the way down. That's overwhelming, right? To scroll through, and then also, again, it might have been a glitch, but you have 53 that are selected
Yeah.
already to uncheck
Very
those.
be ridiculous. Question for you,
Yes.
just softball.
Oh, good.
What
I like
is the
those.
goal of a donation page?
The goal of a donation page is a softball question. It's to accept a donation, right?
Okay.
So that's a great question though, because it is. We want to make sure, and as we talk through this, that the goal of that donation page is as clean and simple as possible,
Right.
so that we can actually accept that donation. Talking about field number friction, whether it's again asking for a work phone or another email or second address. That's all great information, but we don't need that information to actually capture the donation.
At least at the moment, which you can get it later once you onboard them, right?
Exactly, right? In that moment, the main purpose is actually to capture that donation
Yep.
right then and there. So we want to make it as easy and seamless as possible.
Yep.
So that's field number friction. The next one we have is actually confusion friction. You might be saying, what's that? Well, that's the confusing part about it. It's when there are unexpected items to navigate, right? Competing different calls to action or distracting links or messages that aren't related to the act of giving, right? So if you have different images on there or other links that take them away from the donation process,
Yep.
That's going to be confusion friction, or it's combating against, again, the purpose of the donation page, which is to complete a donation.
Yeah.
A great example of that, we have, they're a current client of ours. I don't know if they're on this call or not, but Food Bank of Iowa, great organization there. We did a test on their donation page. So we have up here the control, we have all the header links right here, and then down below the sign up for an e-newsletter. Those are great things, right? I mean, signing up for a newsletter, we're capturing an email address. That's great. Get to know us, make a difference. Those are all great things, but they're competing with the main purpose of the donation page, which is to make a donation,
Yep.
right? So we tested over here on the treatment, removing the header links, removing the sign up form. We actually saw a 45% increase in donations,
That's
in
awesome.
conversion rate,
Yep.
just by doing that simple thing. Other than that, the donation pages are the exact same. We just removed those confusing links that take them away from the main goal
Yep.
of our donation page, which is to make that donation.
All right. Permission to ask two questions.
Please do.
One, this appears to be an embedded form.
It
So we've taken a giving form that we've created and put it onto their website. And then sometimes we work with clients who don't do that and they just have the giving page that's separate
Yep, just links
outside
out
of their
to it.
website. So talk a little bit about the benefits of actually making it a part of the website and not making it a part of the website, because in a way, what you've done here is you've eliminated portions of the website to make it a little cleaner.
It is, and there's benefits to both, right? And plus and minuses to both. Embedding on the website, the great thing is it still looks like you're on that website.
Yeah.
The URL is still going to be, fboi.org. You're not changing the URL that they're on, right?
Yep.
The only caveat to that, and then one thing that we need to make sure of, is that in the actual URL in here, is that we still have that lock so that it appears to be secure. We're not just sending them to HTTP. We have that HTTPS, added security, added comfort, so they're more likely to complete that donation. On the flip side, if you're sending them to a third-party URL, vice versa, the great thing is it's going to have that security
Yep.
aspect to it.
Yep.
So it's going to look and appear secure, which it will be. Even the embed forms are secure. But the difference is, if you're sending them to like a Donor Perfect, for example, which a lot of our clients use, we want to make sure that URL still has the name of the organization. So
They
it
know
looks
Food
like
Bank
they're-
of Iowa. They don't know
Exactly.
Donor
You're not
Perfect.
clicking donate and then it takes you to donorperfect.com /
Yep.
and a bunch of numbers, right? That's confusing. It's like, wait a minute, I was trying to give to this
Right.
organization here.
Right. Another question real quick. So image here. Talk a little bit about the value of using images versus video, because in a way video can tell a different kind of story and a compelling way to make it convincing, but it also seems to me it could be distracting because you're getting someone to watch a video rather than moving forward with their gift. So have you tested that at all? Like,
I have tested this before, actually, a couple of different times, and my recommendation would be to test it, right? I think video is great. I think it can be very powerful, and I think it can help lead to a donation. In testing it, though, usually copy's king, right? And we'll talk about a little bit more about that whenever we discuss value proposition. But in every test that I've done, copy always wins as far as overall conversion rate opposed to video. And then you were talking about even images. I think images are great on a donation page. We just want to limit it to at least one image, and then also make sure that it coincides with the actual copy that's in here, right?
Yep.
You don't want to have just a random image if it doesn't coincide with the specific donation ask.
Yep. Gotcha.
Yep. Perfect. So the next type of friction, third type, is steps friction. This is just, again, fairly self-explanatory, but it's the more steps that you have required to complete the transaction, the greater the chance of abandonment.
Yep.
Right? So the more steps it takes to actually complete that donation, the more chances they're going to leave that donation process. An example of that here is we went to this organization's website here. We clicked on Give, which is pretty noticeable.
This actually looks pretty good because you can see ways to give. I mean, or online giving.
Yeah,
pretty obvious.
It really is. So we clicked on online giving. That was step one in the process. That took us to this page, which is a little confusing, but we're not talking about confusion friction here. We're talking about steps friction. So we went ahead and clicked on new U.S. partner there, since we're based in the U.S. So we assumed that's the one we needed to click on. So we clicked on that. That was step two in the process. It then took us to the partner information, right? To fill out our actual information, names, things like that. And then we clicked on create a new pledge. And again, I personally don't love the wording there, but we clicked on create a new pledge, which took us to our fourth step in the process, where we could finally actually select the donation amount, how much we wanted to give. So we have the custom pledge, monthly giving, or one-time $360 gift. So we went ahead and selected the one-time $360 gift.
Generous.
Well, you know, I like to think of BCA being very generous. So that took us to our fifth step, which finally allowed us to enter in our payment information, right? So we entered in our payment information. Going back to, again, the field number friction here, ways to watch, prayer, those are all great things, but not necessarily something that we need to capture that donation at the moment kind of deal. That's something that we can get afterwards, even on the confirmation page. But we went ahead and clicked on next over here, which took us to our sixth step. After 6 steps, I think they said, man, this is where people, once they hit 6 steps, it's getting a little much. So they went ahead and gave us a little progress bar to let us know you're halfway there.
You're halfway.
You're almost there. Just keep going with this process. Don't give up now, kind of deal. Right. That's not a good sign. We have to say
that
don't give up now.
That might be a conversion killer right there. 50%.
Yeah, I was say I said, oh my goodness. So it's again, steps friction. We want to make it as clean and simple as possible.
Yeah.
A great example, a good example of this is actually DePelchin Children's Center, who's another client of ours. Shout out, great organization. So we went to their homepage of the website, just like we did for the other
Super
organization.
attractive and easy to see the donating.
You have two donate options, which is great, right?
Yep.
If you miss it here, you see it here, kind of thing. So we clicked on donate now. They both take you to the same donation process, but it takes you to one single form. Everything is right here. So it takes you to one form. We're able to enter in our donation amount, our contribution information, and hit submit.
Awesome.
So it's a 2-step process opposed to a 10-step process, 12-step process. So that's really important when it comes to step friction, is making sure that it's as seamless and easy as possible.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
So I've got a question.
Okay.
I'm sitting here listening, helpful information. I'm wondering, man, I've noticed a couple things that maybe my donation process includes, or I'm not sure. What's the best way for me to sort of analyze all the details? And we will send you a copy of this PowerPoint.
Yep.
But what's a good way for people to kind of, at a practical level?
No, it's honestly, it's pretty simple. It's the best thing is to go through the donation process yourself. So go to your organization's website for steps friction. Start again right on the main donation page. Click through it, or even through an email, things like that.
Make a $5 gift or something.
Make a $5 gift and go through that process, mindfully thinking through, okay, how many steps? What fields am I asking for here? And do I have competing links here? Is there a confusion aspect to it? And make note of that. And then, again, rather than just eliminating it, test into this, right? We want to see if we can create that lift in conversion rate. So don't just say, you know what, I need to go from 2 steps, or from 4 steps down to 2 steps, or I need to eliminate these XYZ fields. Let's test into this and see that we can prove that this is the better route, the conversion route.
Yep.
So that's, again, next best steps are actually go through that donation process yourself. Really kind of the next thing that we want to talk about, again, we kind of broke it up into two different sections. You have donation friction. The next is going to be value proposition. And what is a good value proposition? And essentially, it's answering the question of why should I give to you opposed to someone else, or even at all, right? So it's in essence the copy that's on the donation page. So many times I go to an organization's donation page and don't see any copy at all. We can't assume that people are already motivated to give once they get on that donation page. We need to provide them with the reason to give and that actual value proposition.
Because I was even thinking while you were talking about testing the donation process is that some of the people probably already are donors and have gone through the process, but maybe not in the mindset of a non-donor.
Yeah.
Because imagine the amount of people that are hitting the website. You've got non-donors, you've got first-time donors, second-time donors, people who are unfamiliar, may need reinforcement into the mission, versus someone who's a major giver who's just fulfilling a pledge where, so there's just a variety of people hitting the page, right?
And there's different types of value proposition, which we'll go into, but I mean, you can lead they might be a second or third time donor. You might be able to convert them into a monthly donor, a recurring donor, or get them to increase that second time donation kind of deal. And all that's going to be geared around the actual value proposition, which is the copy that's on that page. A great example here, another university good organization here. We had a test that I ran. We have the value proposition, the control over here was lacking, right? The value proposition said,
"Thank you for your support."
Yep, we
Presumptive
appreciate your
close.
gift. Exactly.
Presumptive close.
Thank you for the support. It's done. It's a lock. So we said, man, what if we actually added value proposition? We added all this copy right here, actually explained what the organization does, how their gift makes an impact, things like that. And by doing that, we actually saw a 46% increase in donations.
Okay, so I do have a question on that, if I may. So when I look at all that copy, my mind goes to, I'm on my laptop or on a phone. All I can see, and I've clicked over to go to the donation page, but all I can see is copy, and I don't see the form.
Yeah.
So tell me, what your thoughts are regarding the amount of copy, what's too much, what's too little. Have you tested that?
Yeah, definitely. I have. And I can tell you right now, copy is king, right? So even right here, you're talking about you can't see the form. There's one sentence here. You can see the form right away. Here, again, the fold is probably right around this area. So you can't see the form at all. But again, value proposition. Why do we give? Why does somebody want to donate to your organization? And actually answering that. And usually people are going to read from top down. So it's important to have that. You're talking about what's an important length. I don't think there's a specific number of hey, 2 paragraphs is ideal, 5 paragraphs is ideal. I've done testing where emails are, you're scrolling for 4 or 5 scrolls before you hit the bottom of the email, but have performed great kind of deal. I think it's just however much copy it takes to answer the question of why should I give to your organization opposed to another organization or even at all kind of deal. Sometimes you can do that in a paragraph.
So you can test length
sometimes
of copy, whatnot.
Exactly. But I can tell you right now that value proposition.
That clearly beat that.
Yeah. Copy is very important. Value proposition is very important.
Yep.
There's a couple different ways of value proposition as well. It doesn't always have to be just geared around the main copy on a donation page. We have another client of ours, actually, great organization, West Texas Food Bank. We said, man, let's test value proposition, but not necessarily the copy that's on the donation page. Let's test it around the actual gift array, the donation amounts. So we have over here the control where it's just the specific donation amounts. We added specific value proposition copy around that, letting them know how their gift has an impact.
What that level of gift does.
Exactly. That, hey, $25 helps feed 50 people every month. That also reiterates the importance of monthly giving as well. By doing this and adding value prop just around the gift amounts, we saw a 60% increase in donations.
That's awesome.
So again, it doesn't have to always be, the first place that I would start out is the copy that's on the donation page, but we can actually get into value proposition copy throughout the entire form, the entire process.
That's great. So, okay, so I'm at that place. I've absorbed a lot of information, value proposition,
We've gone through a lot.
I'm thinking there may be a couple things I need to look at. I mean, maybe someone's sitting here going, I got a half a dozen things to look at.
Yeah.
How do you move through that change? Someone goes through the donation process and sees a bunch of things to change. How do you move through that?
Yeah, there's
all at once, or
no, definitely not all at once. And again, you're right. We've covered a lot on here. there might be some of you on the call thinking, man, I need to make 5 or 6 different changes on my donation page. My recommendation is to make one change at a time, test that. The very first thing that I would look at, that'll probably usually give you the biggest lift opposed to talking about conversion rate, is going to be that value proposition. So making sure that we have the proper copy, making sure that we're actually answering the question, why should I give to you opposed to someone else or even at all? Once we do that, then we can kind of get into the different steps, friction, things like that, to help increase that conversion rate. But the biggest thing is going to be answering that question, that copy.
Okay.
And it seems like an easy question, but I know it can be hard to answer sometimes. Talking with a lot of different organizations, things like that, that's a difficult question to answer and actually get that answer
Well, it's critical
where it looks
too.
well on the donation page.
I'm sorry to interrupt, but
No, you're fine.
I've been doing it the whole time.
That's why you're here, right? if you weren't here, it'd just be me talking
Just
a bunch.
changed my title from host to interrupter.
Yeah.
So one of the things that's interesting about this is the story is changing. So 2 years ago was the pandemic,
Yeah.
and then for some of us here in Texas, it was the ice storm. So these compelling events that drove the narrative. But now it's more complex in a way because some of the people who are donors are experiencing the same things that our food banks or other clients are, which is, inflation affecting food prices, supply chain issues, those kinds of things. So that's again, the value proposition has to be clarified.
It does, and I think a great way to answer that, and kind of how really I start out whenever I look at it, like, all right, I need to answer this question, is I think it's a good way to look at it is really problem solution, right? So what's the problem? You talked about, we've actually worked with a couple of our organizations. Again, we primarily work with food bank organizations, but they had a summer hunger campaign, right? So the problem is, you have kids that are on free or reduced meals during the school year. As we enter into summer, they lose out on that great benefit. So the problem is they're losing out on this phenomenal benefit. The solution is this specific food bank worked with the local schools to get a list of those kids that are on free or reduced meals and help provide meals to those kids that typically don't have access to that healthy food during the summer. So that was kind of the solution, and then you jump into the specific ask.
That's awesome.
Hey, will you, with your gift today, we can help accomplish this kind of deal, and you have the actual donation form. So it's problem solution based is a great place to start to help answer that question.
I was on a great mobile distribution at a school in Northern Nevada, so food bank, shout out to Food Bank of Northern Nevada.
Yes.
Time for questions?
Now it's time for questions. Sorry.
Okay.
Yes. Let me.
So let's see what we got. Do we have any?
We do. Again, it is time for questions. I'll just
But
reiterate.
it's whether we do have questions or not.
We
do.
I see a couple coming up.
Okay.
If you also have, again, make sure you chat the Q&A person on the Zoom if you do have questions.
This one's a little similar, but it reminds me, it's a little bit about embedding the donation page, but it's also about security. And
It is.
SSL, and there's a good story that you have about that.
Yeah, so the question is, we kind of already touched on it as far as the embedding the form. Is that secure? The answer is yes, it is. All donation forms do have to be PCI compliant. So your form is PCI compliant. It is secure. The story that we talked about a few weeks ago, though, it's a great test that we did actually. It was an organization that we embedded it, but they didn't have the lock up there. So what we did is I literally Googled image of a lock, took a screenshot of a picture of a lock, and put it right next to the credit card field, and then we saw an increase in donations.
Yeah.
All it was an image of the credit card.
It's giving confidence.
It is.
Yeah.
It's that.
Even though it really didn't mean anything.
Yeah. People saw the lock and said, okay, this is secure. I don't mind entering in my credit card or my ACH information.
This one goes back to something we kind of covered, but maybe you go into detail too. How long should copy be on my donation page? And again, there's probably not a right answer to that, but
there's not a right answer. There's a wrong answer, and that's not having any copy at all. So the answer is as long as it needs to be. As long as it needs to be to answer the question that we talked about, that value proposition question, is that. Another question, and this isn't necessarily around donation pages, but how often do I need to be emailing, right? And direct ask, things like that. And again, the answer is as long as we're getting great results. It's, if we send a solicitation email and we get a bunch of donations in from it, do I send another one? Well, as long as we're going to keep getting donations in, let's do that. And as long as we're getting good open rates, good responses. Same thing with the copy. It needs to be as long as we need it to be to actually get those results and answer those value proposition questions.
that's awesome.
Yep.
All right, I think that's it.
I think so as well.
Anything else? Did you forget anything? You had a lot to say.
I did have a lot to say. So just to reiterate too, for those that are on the call, We'll be sending this out for those that even couldn't join. Hopefully you guys will be able to watch it. We'll send this out probably tomorrow. I'll send this out along with the slides. And then we're looking at doing this monthly.
Yep.
This will be a recurring thing. Where it's not going to be all about digital as well. We have, again,
Host different topics. Yep.
so many great people here at BCA that have so much knowledge about direct mail giving, capital campaigns. We might even bring Brad in, who knows pretty much everything.
Brad will make an appearance at some point for sure.
So thank you guys for attending our first webinar.
Yeah.
This is something that we'll continue to do on a monthly
Yeah.
basis.
Thank you very much. You guys have a great day.
All right. Thanks, guys.